Hello and welcome to another Superversive live stream. I am your host, Ben Wheeler, and I'm joined as always by my partner, Anthony Marchetta. How are you doing today, Anthony?
Having a good day. My whole world's going to get a lot busier starting tomorrow.
Yep,
So
he,
today, having a good time.
fantastic. That's always fun. So, today we're going to be talking about JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 8, Jojolion, which is, I believe, the longest of the JoJo adventures so far. And in
By
general,
a fair margin, I believe.
fair margin, certainly in the amount of time it's taken to get through the story, especially with those breaks, which are absolutely killer, just in the worst possible way, in my opinion. Um, but we're celebrating its 100th chapter. Araki certainly moves from strength to strength. And even though this is certainly a bizarre adventure, it has its appeal excuse me. Jojolion has its appeal and it has its fans, which makes it honestly very much worth talking about. The only problem is that, this is like the one JoJo where, we don't know the ending to it yet, so we can't judge it all. And it's like, it hurts.
Okay, so to give you an idea, Steel Ball Run was 95 chapters.
Yep.
Jojolion just hit 100, and it's showing no signs of slowing down. We're probably reaching the climax soon, but we're also not there yet. And if I
Mm-hmm.
had to estimate, this could literally go for another, 20 chapters. I would not be surprised at all.
Iraqi, why? Well, that's how it is. Um, Part of the problem with Jojolion is the amount of fatigue that's in this thing. Just because, it's just got a lot to it. You kind of wish there wasn't so much with it, but then it's like it feels good and it feels like there's a huge sort of um, world to it, a feeling to it that, you know, makes every JoJo unique. Um, the basic story,
Yeah,
yeah, the basic story is that Yasuho Hirose discovers a mysterious man uh, who is buried in his waist in the walleyes, a mysterious series of fissures and cliffs that have grown out of the ground at the end of the 2011 earthquake. That was quite famous. That man proves to be Josuke, who, I mean, just gonna mention the spoilers, but who turns out to be an amalgam of other characters, killed by the rock humans, um, who are peddling the Rokakaka fruit, a fruit that offers equivalent exchange. Um, so it might fix whatever's broken inside you, but you can't control the cost. Ooh, excuse me. This cost can change from person to person, from the deforming to the relatively minor. Josuke has to fight his way through the organization of rock humans, a strange, inhuman species that can mimic humanity, who are desperate to both kill him and to benefit off the Rokakaka's special properties. At this moment, he has fought his way through all the rock humans and has reached the last of the rock human types, which is Toru, who has a stand called the Wonder of You, which, even though it's passive, is quite deadly in the attack. So long as you're pursuing, by any definition, the Wonder of You, endless calamity will roll your way.
Yeah, this one seems to have a lot of powers like tied into it. It was also the fact that it's that it is all, by the way, only almost certainly. I don't think that we know for 100% certain yet, but it is almost certainly Toru's stand. Is very interesting because Toru is a character who's, remembering that this comes out once a month, so has been around for a while now, and the Jojo fandom was strongly suspicious of him from when he was first introduced because he had designs on Yasuho, who is the love interest of our main character, which seemed to mark him out as somewhat villainous. The funny thing about Yasuho, the weird thing, is that nobody was surprised at all when he was revealed as a villain. And in fact, Araki didn't even play it as a twist, really. Like, I don't even think he was trying to surprise people. It's
With what as a
presented
twist?
with Toru as a villain.
Oh, yeah, no, it wasn't
Yeah, it's
surprising at all.
presented very matter of fact. Like, he just kind of assumed you already knew. The funny
Right,
thing about it to me is that he didn't actually do anything like overtly villainous until very, very recently. But everybody already had kind of assumed he was a villain.
right.
It was kind of funny because it's like Yasuho asks him for help. He says, "I'm on my way," and then he goes. And the fandom is going like, "Here we go. Now we're about to see the villain reveal." And they were right, by the way. Like, I don't think he goes to Yasuho if I remember. I don't remember exactly what he did, but
I
he
think
did
he's
he
on
did
his way.
something. He did something recently like that marked him out as a villain, said something or did something. And yet he hasn't actually, he didn't actually do anything for the longest time. People just kind of assumed because he kept showing up and because he was sort of kind of and opposed to Gappy, and there was something suspicious
Mhm,
about him. And the way the story was structured, like as a mystery, he seemed to fit the role a villain. And now the suspicion is that the head doctor stand, the Wonder of You, is connected to Toru, which is interesting too, because that means that Toru's got to be like, what, 95 years old or something?
rock humans don't age.
Yeah. So it would still fit, but
Yep,
he'd be like a 95-year-old man, which makes the designs on Yasuho even creepier, actually.
right. But there's this interesting sort of, mechanic to the rock humans where they're, no, 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 no sound. Where they're, how do I wanna put it? They're doomed to romance and to failure in that romance. Like, it's the weirdest sort of, how do I wanna put it? It's
Well,
like
they mentioned most of the time rock humans and regular humans don't fall in love. Very, very rarely they do. This time when they do, and almost every single time that they do, it ends in tragedy.
mhm,
I think it's like there are very, very, very few exceptions, but they're extraordinarily rare to the point, where they're almost non-existent. And for that matter, even rock human relationships are rare, let alone successful ones.
mhm. They're weird, they have those Aztec gods of fitness vibe from part 2, but they're still quite kinda, weird. Um,
They definitely feel to me a little bit like he's riffing off of the part two Aztec gods thing again. A little
right.
bit.
Just a little bit, but at the same time, it doesn't, um how do I wanna put it? I'm just trying to think. It feels like a riff, but not a bad riff. Hmm.
No, it doesn't feel like he's ripping them off. It feels as if he's put, which everything in Steel Ball Run onward honestly has felt in some ways as him commenting on his own work in some sense.
Right.
Uh, I think the Rock Humans definitely feel like a little bit of a more complex commentary on the Aztec gods of Part 2 in some way,
Right. And it's like it's not
but
bad.
it's its own thing.
Yeah.
Jojolion as a whole is definitely it is I think looked at by fans probably correctly as the weirdest part. So the most bizarre of all the bizarre adventures. That's in some ways I think it might be like the most personal part. Uh After everything came to this whole world crashing head in part 6 with the reboot universe, he calmed things down a little. Not that part 7 wasn't didn't have world shaking effects, but but it wasn't necessarily going to like end the world. And if our heroes failed, the world would go on.
Mhm.
But in this one, like, you know, Gappy and all of them could definitely fail, and what would happen as a result to the rest of the world is not much.
You see, I don't know. Like it's one of those things where
I'm not sure. It's kind of that's what it seems like to me, though.
my thing with it is I feel that the how do I want to put it? Um it's a long-term thing that has the fate of the world connected to it, not a short-term thing. And besides that, Steel Ball Run was far more personal than um, Part 8 is. Like, I feel Part 8 kind of suffers from that a little bit. Like, so Steel Ball Run continues. You kind of get the feeling that Valentine is the villain throughout it, but there's a lot of personal beef between Diego and Dio and Dino Dio
Johnny,
and Johnny, as well as a lot of personal conflict for Gyro. So you have Gyro's personal conflict, which is pretty great, and Johnny's conflict with sort of everything else around him. He's kind of like this little chihuahua that wants to fight everything, um, which is its own thing. But it's how do I want to put it? It doesn't. When you like this is also kind of a very much a writing thing. When you move it to part 8, it turns out that the rock human villains had very little personal relations with the two men, Kira Yoshikage and um whatever Josuke's last name was, in part 8, until Josuke and Kira interfered with them. Like they were just kind of there doing their thing. So they interfered with it, um and then it became kind of personal, but even then it's not like it doesn't feel personal. So Damo's group, who is like the halfway villain, is made up of an architect who interferes with the main character's family, the Gashikatas, um, and works with Jobin. Like honestly, Jobin has more personal things with the rock humans than Josuke does. The doctors were a welcome addition since Holly Joestar,
yeah, I was
Josuke.
about to say getting Holly involved. I think it make a big difference
I think so, and it really helped sort of
in
make it
a
feel
good
more
way.
personal. Oh yeah,
And I know a lot of the fan after Josuke gives his speech about uh I know a lot of the fans really like cottoned on to Gappy after he gave his, I don't remember who I am. I don't remember, my past, but I do know one thing. You are my mother and I will save you, which was a great moment, by the way, one of the best moments in the manga. It was very, very effective emotionally.
oh yeah.
Yeah. And I think that it did do a lot to, kind of get Gappy properly situated into the story.
I agree with you, and it helped.
Jojolion has a lot of really hardcore fans, I've noticed. Like there are people who love, love, love Jojolion, and I get it because it has its points.
Right. They love deluxe it, but uh,
Yeah.
they like it took me a while. I actually really liked the moment where they how do I want to put it? Where they had that strong declaration of will that Josuke had, especially since it kind of grounded the character more in what he was about to do in the future. So if you read it from the beginning, you literally see this guy wander around for a while, hanging out with the Higashikatas, and then like he kills a couple rock humans, and then the Higashikatas are invaded by Damo, and then there's nothing for a little bit, and then like it's a mix of Jobin and the doctors trying to kill Josuke, and
Yeah. I've
it's
mentioned before that I'm convinced he did not have an idea of what he was doing for a while. Uh, and then I think at this point he's definitely come up with an idea. I think it seems to me like he knows where he's going now. But there was definitely a point in the middle where I'm convinced Araki really wasn't sure what he was going to do or where he was going to go next.
yep, I agree with you. I like Araki is a proper artist. He both sticks to his art as a craft to make money and as well to keep his own personal flair. Um like I just had some like it's not really an argument on right of center because those people don't really argue too much. But somebody went, unless you're a parent, you can't teach drive. Nobody can teach flair. Just like a writer, you can't teach someone how to create a voice, only how to express it. Like in any other discipline, you challenge the students to give them an opportunity to shine. If they don't shine after a while, you let them go. Telling people they're special snowflakes and that any blot of personal paint is awesome. Blah blah blah. Self-esteem movement has failed. You have to find the way to follow the rules and break the rules to create innovative art. I don't really understand the context of this comment because I was talking about craft and needing passion for the work, which Araki just has in spades. Um, uh, because like there's a connection between passion and how good your art is. Um, it's it's like this. If you don't like what you're doing, you're going to do a bad job with it. Even if you do a good job with it while not liking what you're doing with it, in the end, that flaw will impede your upward rise within whatever art or business that you're trying to do. If you go to a pizza place and work there and you don't actually like pizzas, you're not going to create a satisfying pizza except by being a dumb rote monkey who's spreading toppings on a piece of dough. Yep. And then they call you Jojo the Doughboy. And then all of a sudden, a blonde vampire kicks in your door and starts beating you up because of your bloodline. And that's Jojo Part 9. And it's literally just a Rocky talking about his favorite pizzas for 600 chapters once a month. You know he can do it, Anthony. You know he can do
Of course, I would never doubt it.
it.
I'm looking right now. I was trying to see if I can find the quote of the speech to Holly, which was a pretty great moment. There was this one thing, and I've mentioned this in discussions with Jojolion in the past, that was what convinced me that Araki wasn't really sure what he was going to do with it for a long time. They have that long storyline with what's his name? Joshu. Yeah, they have
hmm
the long storyline with Joshu where he steals the money and then he can't get rid of it.
That
And then
was
they show
that was
that
only 2 chapters.
I remember it being long. Either way, they have that storyline. That's not the point. They have that storyline, and then they cut to Josuke, and they tell Josuke that like they owe money to his mother, and they tell Joshu that the only way that he can get rid of this curse is if somebody else steals the money from him. And I remember at the time, it looked like they were very strongly hinting that Gappy was going to steal the. By the way, for those who don't know, Gappy is a nickname that fans have given to the protagonist of Part 8 because he happens to have the same name as the protagonist of Part 4. Um, in a very weird decision by Iraqi. I still don't really get that.
Because he
That
has a
seems
gap in
dumb to
his
me. But
tooth.
no, Gappy I get. I mean, Iraqi naming him Josuke is weird to me, but I don't know. Whatever. The point is, they were very strongly hinting at the time that Gappy was going to steal the money from Joshu and so that he could pay for Holly's treatment, and then like take on the you know burden of the curse himself and have to get rid of it somehow.
Hmm.
And then it's never brought up again, to my knowledge. I don't even remember him mentioning it since then.
You see, I didn't get that at all from Joshu's side bit. Rather, it felt more like Joshu, like they had just given him a little thing where Joshu. I don't know, not that Joshu could shine, but just that Joshu could have his moment in the limelight. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but like I said, I need to have I need to see if I can find the chapters even, and maybe I can find how it was framed. But I strongly remember them doing this whole thing and then and then cutting to Gappy, like being upset because he doesn't have the money to pay for Holly's treatment. And I'm like, oh, okay, so Joshu's going to have Gappy steal from him,
Hmm.
and then it's going to move the curse to him. And then they just don't. They don't do that. And then they do something completely different. Now, right now, in Jojolion's a weird part too, in that Araki, with the exception of with a couple of very notable exceptions, Araki is generally pretty good with when a character dies, they're dead. But Jojolion is kind of weird in this regard because there's magical heal anything juice, and it's already been used once on the main character, so we know that it's there.
Hmm.
And
But he destroyed the
so,
research equipment.
what research equipment?
So,
When was this?
so I found in volume 23, chapter 92. Uh, Holly has just saved her son, and the mix of her son with another. And so he goes, "And this person I'm seeing right now, a real, a dream? Am I seeing the illusion of Holly's son right now? She was under the impression that I'm her son Yoshikage. Or maybe you knew your son was dead, you understood everything. But you still called me Yoshikage and brought me to this room. My name is Higashikata Josuke, and my memories from when I was born are long gone from their world. They'll never come back. But even so, there's something I'm certain of. I am your son. No matter where I go or what era I live in, there's something certain that I can believe in. Mom." And then he starts breaking up the research equipment.
Yeah, that was the speech, and that's one of the strongest moments in the entire story. It was a uh, very effective emotional beat.
And then he
Uh,
hold on. Then
I was moved when I read it. I went, "Aw."
right.
Yeah.
And then he goes, "I'll save you, I swear it. Yoshikage, he must not chase after him. But it's okay to make him do the chasing. That is endless calamity." Then he goes, "Wherever the new Rokakaka fruit is, I'm going to get my hands on it." And that's how the chapter ends.
Yeah, Araki, unfortunately for all of his fans, has set up like three or four separate cliffhangers right now, and he's gonna have us waiting for like 2 months for
Right.
the next chapter to come out. Uh, right now we don't know what's gonna happen with Yasuho. We know that Joshu said he would save her. Probably, if I had to guess, he's gonna use Nut King Cole to reattach her arm. which I not enough people have talked about as a possibility, but seems like the obvious move to me.
Right? Nut King Cole is
Uh,
an interesting stand, and it's absolutely wasted on him. It is the ability
yeah,
to unscrew anything and screw anything together.
yeah. It seems to me like he says he's gonna save. Jochu says he's gonna save Yasuho, and it seemed to me like okay, so he'll use Nut King Cole to reattach her arm, which he may still do. So let's see. Uh, let's see. But we don't know what's happening there. We just know that Joshu said he would save her. That's it. We know that Toru is on his way, and he is almost certainly, though not definitely, but almost definitely the head doctor and responsible for Wonder View. Uh, Rai Mamazuku is lying bleeding out on the ground and probably going to die. Though, once again, in a world where the Rakakuga fruits and the rock human juice or whatever exists, it's not 100% certainty, but it's likely.
Mhm.
And he seems to have figured out some way for Josuke to win the fight with the head doctor by connecting it to the spin of Steel Ball Run. I've
Yep.
seen people saying it might connect to like string theory, but they put so much emphasis, including fancy font titles and everything, on the word spin
Right.
that it has to do with Steel Ball Run.
Right. Like the spin was an interesting idea. It was kind of poorly defined because it was like Hamon, but Hamon was pretty simple. It is the secret ancient sun-breathing martial art that kills vampires. You know, like that's it because it infuses life into it. Like the
Yeah,
spin,
the spin was weird. It's not really clear how it works. He's like, I'm going to teach you how to use it, but does he really teach him how to use it outside of saying, now look at the golden ratio? Because I
right?
could do that, and I can't do what Gyro does with the spin.
Right? Like
So I don't really know what he taught him.
I wish I knew what motion he was making with his hands. Let's see here. Fanbot 1000 reporting for duty. Hello, CVWX. Um, hmm. How do I want to say it? Like, it isn't that it's a panacea or a cure-all. It just does a lot, and
No, I
like
mean
it
it
works.
didn't solve all of the problems.
Right.
Gyro died, and Joe and Johnny lost. In fact, I've seen some people say it was actually important for Johnny to lose that final battle to prove that he wasn't invincible. And I guess that's correct.
Yes,
It did definitely
that, that is technically correct. Yes.
it accomplished that goal, I guess.
Right.
So you're right. I wouldn't call the stand. I think canonically, we've just seen that or the spin is not a cure-all item. It's not. It doesn't just fix everything. But with that said, having access to something with powers that poorly defined and that expansive,
Right.
and that can apparently like break into other dimensions and things, it's
Right.
definitely going to be a uh very interesting to see what Josuke can do with this.
Right.
And there's also the fact that a lot of fans have speculated, and I tend to be in this group that, although I don't know if Araki will ever actually confirm it,
Mhm.
um, that Rai Mamazuku is a Zeppeli or a descendant of the Zeppelis.
I'm in agreement
Because
with you.
the spin was supposed to be like a secret Zeppeli technique. So how has he heard of it?
Right.
And we know that the Zeppelis left Naples. I,
Yep.
I I will say I will grant this, which is that it would be a hell of a coincidence if they left Naples and went to where Johnny moved.
Right.
Uh,
But here's the thing though. So they moved after Johnny visited them with Gyro's corpse.
so you think they might have moved to Johnny? They might have
Yep.
followed Johnny to Japan.
So here's the 1, 2, 3. Uh they only moved after Johnny appeared to them in Naples. Then Johnny married the fruit importer exporter Norusuke. like the first Norusuke. He married
Yes.
his daughter. So then, uh, it's kind of like the logic is that the fruit praisers, gardeners, whatever you want to call them, of the Norusukes have been Higashikatas have been a closely guarded secret. Therefore, um, or at least this one is. Therefore, it could be Gyro Zappelli, and they're not embarrassed, but basically they don't want it out that they're working it with foreigners.
Yeah, I can get that. I mean, Mamazuku, there is definitely something very Zeppeli-ish in the way that the plant appraiser works.
Yeah,
Yeah, know, how exacting their methods are and how specific they
right.
are. There's something there is something very Zeppeli-ish about it. But just the fact that he's talking about spin as if he knows what that is, and as if figuring out that that the soap bubbles are spinning is some big revelation, leads me to believe that he has to know about the spin power, and that's supposed to be a Zeppeli thing.
Yep.
Like, it was supposed to be very specific to the Zeppeli family. It was their secret. So I think that Mamazuku was probably a Zeppeli. It would also make sense with the fact that he's dying to save the protagonist, because that's what Zeppelis do.
Right. And it's unfortunate.
That's the which is too bad because Rei Mamazuku was probably my favorite character currently.
Right.
Uh, he's awesome. When he was introduced, honestly, I think that it picked up the narrative in a big way. He's
Right.
really great. Doggy style is a cool stand ability,
Yep.
mostly because it's very underpowered, and I like that. Especially with how crazy OP the stance got starting in like part 7. Really starting in part 6, starting with Sea Moon, but you know, with part 7 when all of the stands were like these crazy overpowered stands. It is pretty cool that Rei Mamazuku was there getting in the action with the stand that allows him to just kind of unpeel himself
Right.
like a
Like an
discount
orange.
version of Stone Free. Yeah, it's like
Right.
a discount version of Stone Free.
Like
It's
what?
not even as good.
Right. It's like you can't even turn yourself into a Mobius strip. Come on. Uh,
But I like that about because it makes it like he's there competing with all of these people with this friggin' thing.
right.
Going up against like immortal rock humans and calamities and all of that.
Right. I
I was blown away by the spin reveal too, by the way. I gotta say, I was
really.
extremely impressed with that. Yes, it was my impression reading it was, damn, Araki remembered.
Araki doesn't forget anything. I am
No, no, he doesn't forget as much as people accuse him of anyway.
right. It's
I
it's
think in the part 3 era, maybe because he just introduced and discarded so many things like one by one as one-off
right.
fights, like he probably did forget some things, but not nearly to the extent people accuse him of.
Right. It's like sure, like he forgot like Star Platinum's Shining Finger or whatever it was called. Like he didn't use that again after like I want to say Strength after the Strength fight. Um that feels right. But it's like yeah, but that wasn't the thing. And honestly, I'm of the opinion that stands were always that OP. Um just because of how they interacted with everything. Like how do I want to like oh my god, Hierophant Green, like it could shrink and it could control people and it had a
Oh,
powerful
all of the
splash
stands could
attack.
shrink, which was, by the way, something again that was not. I guess he didn't technically forget it because he never said, "Oh, stands are locked in this size,"
Right,
but he never makes use of the fact that stands can grow and shrink ever again, which is too bad.
right,
And it's not. I don't know if you could say officially, "Oh, Araki forgot," because he also doesn't say that they can't. They just never do it.
right. Like I wouldn't put it as that because I always kind of felt it was connected to Hierophant Green, which had a power where it could take over people, like an explicit
Um,
power?
no, because Polnareff sends his stand into Joseph's brain too.
I meant under like Hierophant Green's auspices. You know what I mean?
Was he under Hierophant Green's auspices? I don't
I
remember
don't know.
this, unless I'm missing something.
I can't remember
I'm
at all.
thinking of I'm thinking of when Joseph was it was the fight with Steely Dan,
Right, the
which was the
lovers.
famous the 7-page Muda or aura. Sorry, Muda was
Right.
Giorno. This was like the or the 5-page aura,
Mhm.
and it was the fight with Steely Dan. And it was both Kakyoin and Polnareff shrank their stands and sent them into Joseph's head.
Right. I don't know.
So anybody can, I think,
Yeah.
but they just never do again. I don't know if I would call it forgot explicitly because he never actually says nobody can do this. They just don't do it, which is you would think it would come in handy at some point or another,
Yeah, I
but
can't think of when it
maybe
does
not.
though. Like,
Maybe not.
right? Maybe it's
The
just
other
never
thing is
useful.
that he might have forgotten. Yeah, he might have forgotten something with one of Giorno's powers,
Oh yeah.
like early on in Golden Wind. Like it's revealed that Giorno actually like when he punches you with gold experience, he makes time slow down for you. You know, when you experience it longer. And then later on, they just kind of drop this and never bring it up again.
Counterpoint. The perfect version of that ability is what he did to Diavolo.
True. I mean, you would think though, like it would come up in the fight with Chocolata. Yeah, when he does the 7-page Muda scene, which was my favorite fight and my favorite scene in the show. You would think it would come up that like he didn't just beat this boy down; he beat him down probably for what amounted to, decades of time.
Right. I mean, I'm of the opinion that the reason why it's a 7-page Muda is because of Jorno's powers, but we'll find out. We should ask. Ask
Yeah,
the
to
master.
email Iraqi. It's
Right.
like emailing Oda. Oda actually, Oda's another one like Iraqi. I actually, from what I've read of Oda, who's by the way, for people who don't know, the One Piece creator, but from what I've read of Oda, I really like Oda.
Oh
Much
yeah.
like Iraqi, from what I've read of Iraqi, like he just seems like a likable guy. Oda is actually hilarious, and his little things where he addresses the fans at the end of the One Piece chapters. Some of what he says is really funny.
Right.
Like one of them was somebody said, "Hey, you said that when you write the characters, you say their voices out loud. Do you do this? Did you do this when Nami was speaking sexy too, or whatever?" And Oda responded, "Well, I did something along the lines of like, well, I did for a while, but my voice was so sexy it was distracting the townspeople, and they asked me to stop, or something like that." Uh, Iraqi similar. I don't think is as funny as Oda, but if you read like his book Manga in Theory and Practice, I think can safely be called a classic at this point.
Yep.
Uh, it's a great book, and he just comes off as a really interesting guy, and also as somebody who, like you said, is a genuine artist, but an artist in the old school sense, where he is very much aware that he's doing this for a career and is cognizant of that at all times, and
Mm-hmm.
he doesn't. And not only is he cognizant of it, he also does not seem to me anyway, it doesn't seem like he resents it, you know?
Yeah.
Like you mentioned, that he's writing for Shonen Jump and he keeps things in mind because he's writing for Shonen Jump, but it doesn't seem to bother him, if that
Right.
makes sense. Like
Like,
it's just
yeah.
I'm going to include this because Shonen Jump readers expect it, but at the same time, he doesn't say that with like, I need to change my artistic standard. No, I have an audience. This is my audience. This is who I'm
Right.
writing for.
And his
I
audience
also think. Go
followed
ahead.
him, and his audience followed him to the more mature, like Seinen Jump or whatever. He's in Ultra Jump, um, too. So it's like, and they seem happy with what's going on with this. I just don't think,
Yeah, the hardcore JoJo fans, like I've noticed that there was. there's people who are like hardcore defenders of Jojolion,
Yeah.
and by that I mean like they specifically make videos and things, about how Jojolion doesn't deserve any amount of hate it gets or whatever. And again, you can make very strong arguments. I'm talking about Jojolion here in somewhat lukewarm terms, but I really, really enjoy it. Uh,
Mhm.
like this latest arc has actually been fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
It's been really entertaining. The only problem with it is that it comes out once a month
Right.
and it kills so much of the momentum that when you read it, back to back to back, it's actually a lot more exciting. That's why like the current arc in My Hero Academia is brilliant. It's the best arc of the series. It's absolutely fantastic. But it's helped a lot by the fact that it comes out weekly. And I think if like this arc in My Hero Academia came out monthly, it really wouldn't seem as good to me. Wouldn't have that much driving force.
Thing is, though, you'd
It's
have
it's
much
kind of
more of it.
weird.
Like, it would be a
That's
longer
true.
chapter. It would be a different setup. That's the reason why Jojolion's much better in the reread. Um,
It is.
which is something we've talked about on here with it. Like, it's Jojolion is a good manga in an unqualified way. Um, like, there's no
Yeah, I
counter
mean, to be
argument.
clear, I recommend it to people who are, like if you like battle manga and are looking for one to read right now, not just in the aftermath, but literally right now, read Jojolion, catch up to it, follow it. It is an enjoyable read.
Yep.
Uh, with that said, there's definitely something to the idea that the drive of this plot line and this arc, which is one of the best arcs in Jojolion, if not arguably the best,
Right.
at the very least, it's up there. Uh, there is something to the idea that the fact that it comes out monthly makes it harder when I get back into it to kind of ratchet up that tension again.
Yep.
Whereas I don't need to have that effort isn't involved when I read the latest My Hero Academia chapter. I already have the previous chapter fresh in my memory.
Yep.
So I'm already immediately invested. But when I'm reading this and they have those long intro sections, I'm reading it and then going like, okay, wait a minute, let me try and recollect where they are and why they're here. And I have to go through that process again unless I'm constantly rereading it in the month leading up, and I'm not going to be doing that.
Not even as a true JoJo fan.
I would say I'm probably not even as big a JoJo fan as you are, so I can live with that. I
Yeah,
could
that's
live with
fair.
that. I liked, I've always said my favorite is part 6, particularly its ending. Uh, I think that the ending of part 6 is peak JoJo, but the most consistently excellent part is Steel Ball Run. Uh, Jojolion is the weirdest part.
Yep.
I would agree with the fans who say that. Some of the stuff I wonder like why Araki is doing it in this particular way. Like I question why he happened to name his protagonist Josuke, you know, presumably to contrast you would think at least to contrast with the original Josuke of part 4, except I'm not really sure how he works as a direct contrast to him.
Yeah. I really agree with you on that.
I don't really get why he picked Josuke, to reuse the name,
Right.
especially when his original name is Josefume Kujo. So
He's
his
still JoJo.
yeah, it was still a JoJo name.
And it's really kind of, and it's like the reasoning in universe is that Yasuo had a dog named Josuke, and it's like, and that's why she wants the name of that, and it's like, okay, all right, and he just kind of
It's
goes along
also
with it.
the fact that he is one of two JoJos, the other being Giorno, who was never actually called JoJo at any point in the narrative,
Right.
uh, which is weird.
What?
Once again, I don't really get that. They couldn't throw that in there. I feel
Right.
like it's another thing where I go like, I feel like there must be some sort of thematic reasoning for it, but I don't know exactly what it is. I have, you could come up with theories, I guess. Like Giorno, I think it's kind of obvious. He's not a true Jojo in one sense. He's half Dio, who was their mortal enemy, and
He's
it's
half Jonathan,
part
half
five,
Dio.
right? And part five is very much almost a Jojo side story. It's like, and now we're going to show you the adventures of Dio and Jonathan's son in Italy,
Right.
and it doesn't really connect with the rest of it until Polnareff shows up. Except like as a framing device, almost it connects. But putting it another way, if Polnareff wasn't in it, the story could still exist and make perfect sense, and all of the characters and the villains and everything would
Yep.
work as is. Not that I begrudge Polnareff's presence. I think he works in the narrative, but
Oh, he does.
that, the point being that I sort of get why you could honestly say Giorno isn't a real JoJo in the technical sense, or he doesn't fit in the pattern of the other JoJos where he wouldn't get that name. But Josuke, I feel like you should be able to say the same thing for him, except that I kind of can't. I've seen people make comparisons between Josuke and Giorno, the big one being that Giorno was the combination, in a sense, of Dio and Jonathan, and our Josuke is Gappy is the combination of part four Josuke and Kira. And while that is true in one sense, there's just so many differences that make me go, eh. Like, for example, this Kira is not the same type of character as the Kira of Part 4 in any sense of the word. He's
Yep.
much more morally neutral, where I wouldn't call him a good guy, but he was certainly not the sort of evil monster that the Yoshikage Kira of Part 4 was. And I don't think that Josefumi Kujo, from the very little we know about him, didn't strike me as acting like Part 4 Josuke at all.
Hmm.
Like, there wasn't really anything to do with the part for Josuke. I mean, maybe they were similar people, but we don't know that considering the knowledge that we have of him right now.
Right.
So, from what I could see, Josuke Higashikata is just a guy. Why did he take his name? Like, what's the thematic relevance? you know, there must be something, right?
Right.
And why is he not JoJo? Why, like every other JoJo but Giorno is a JoJo. And again, with Giorno, I think you could make a sort of case for it. But can you with Gappy Josuke?
I couldn't tell you.
Yeah. I've seen people try before in some theory videos, but I've never fully bought it.
Yeah. I dig when people try to connect things, but honestly, it just doesn't work for me. In the long term, or the big term, or the small term. Um, it
Mind
just
you, that isn't to say I think that Gappy doesn't work as a character. I actually think he's quite a good character. I enjoy Gappy. Uh, I think he's a good protagonist, but I don't think that I don't really know I don't really get the thematic relevance of his name
right. Other than the
or the part
JoJo.
4 connection. Yeah, or the part 4. I don't really get the part 4 connection.
Yeah. I kind of dig it just because of mm, how do I want to put it? Like how there's a certain amount of like faffing around town, doing things, having fun, having characters interact with each other. And
There's
even though
definitely a little bit of that in the middle, yeah.
yeah, and then like with the stakes, it just kind of like isn't there the same way it is in other chapters. Like JoJo Part 1 is, the fight with Jonathan and Dio. JoJo 2 is Joseph and the Pillarmen. There's like Joseph's father fought against one of Dio's zombies, like who was part of World War I, as a British Luftwaffe commander. Um JoJo Part 3 is that, it's heavily implied that Theo's gonna try and take over the world, um, eventually, and then it's like Part 4. Yeah, there's a serial killer, and that's it. Uh, you
But
know
even part 4, like, they spend a lot of time on Kira, plus the Kira-centric episodes are the best episodes of the show by far. At least of,
Oh,
the manga,
absolutely.
I can't say. The show, though. Like, the little midsection where they take on where they take on Kira and then he escapes through, the Cinderella beauty salon.
Mhm.
Uh, Absolutely fantastic. Some of the best episodes of the show. Plus, the finale of part 4 are some of the best episodes of JoJo. Uh, Fantastic fight with long range sand battle with Kira at the end of part 4. But this one though, it's like there are so many different things going on that still need to meet up, which is why I said like I could legitimately see this going, and I suspect that's probably what we'll get, like another 20 chapters.
Yeah.
And I suspect that's probably what we're going to see. We're probably going to see like 120 chapters of Jojolion. So while we're reaching the climax, we're not even at the climax. Like we're getting to the climax. This is not even the climactic villain. This is like the pre-villain, the
Right.
pre-final battle.
And
Poor
it's
Mamazuku. He didn't even last long enough to face the final boss. Probably. Maybe.
right. It's I think he'll survive it, just so you know.
It depends. The wounds are pretty bad. He has to take, he'll need the rock fluid or whatever you call it, the fruit
Yeah.
or whatever to survive it. That's the only way. Because he's not just going to survive it otherwise. The man had chunks taken out of him.
And it's honestly not the first time.
Well, Gappy did too. That's why his face is like part rock right now, right?
Right. Hmm.
It's kind of weird what they did too with the whole thing of him being a combination of Yo- Josefumi Kujo and Yoshikage Kira, because I think what we're supposed to get is he's actually just the revived Josefumi Kujo, and the Kira half of him was the part that healed the Josefumi half. Not so much that it was like a Dragon Ball fusion, is the impression that I get. But I don't know
Mhm.
how relevant that is when he has no memory of either half. So it's kind of confusing.
Mhm. I
Yeah,
yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's talking about Jojolion is always just a little bit difficult just because we don't know um we don't know how much is planned ahead of time or not. And it just kind of how do I want to do it? It's just kind of like sitting there until we discover what the ending actually is. Um and you hope that it'll work out, but you just, like it's just kind of you're seeing it and
Yeah,
it's crazy
I'm still
fun.
not clear what's going to happen in the climax.
Yep. And that's a good thing, but there's also like a bit of bad to it, especially if you just can't figure out like how it's going to go. Like if
Well,
you look at the
in
ending,
every previous JoJo part, you could say that you knew where everything was heading from page 1. It
yes.
was, Jonathan versus Dio, Joseph versus Cars, Jotaro versus Dio,
Mhm.
Josuke versus Kier, blah blah, all the way down to Valentine. And now in this one, it's going to be Gappy versus blank. Who?
Yep.
Anyone? I know
Right.
that you could say, like, well, maybe he's not doing a traditional villain, except I think that you do kind of need one
Yes.
in this particular story.
I'm of the opinion that unless it's unless it's a corporeal concept, like say time or old age or whatever, which time, ha, ha, ha,
Yeah.
uh, where
This
I
is
don't,
gonna be a time battle, that's the theory anyway.
right, like Araki isn't doing like a metaphorical villain here. There's no greater metaphor for the evil in this world or what represents the evil. Instead, what he does is he uses what he has to like he how do I want to put it? The candidates for the final boss are Jobin, Kato, and maybe Toru himself, depending on how Endless Calamity turns up. They're already fighting Toru, so it's probably not him. But there's no real good answer to how it's going to end up. Is what I'm trying to say. Yet, then you have um, I'm just trying to think. Uh, uh, so you have Jobin, Kato, Toru. Toru's probably going to be defeated this arc. There's the chance of a larger fight against Jobin with the family. That could happen. But you just don't know. There's also like a few wild cards like Carrera still on the field that you just don't know what to do with.
The
Um,
interesting thing about Jobin is the family will probably, if there's a battle with Jobin, the family would have to take sides.
yep.
And not only would they have to take sides, we already know that some of them would side with Jobin. Like, his wife would probably side with him. We
Mm-hmm.
know that she was willing to kill Yasuho, which was pretty cold.
Right.
The thing is that I was convinced, Jobin was leading to be the villain, and everybody was convinced, seemed to think he was going to be the main villain for a while. And then they have a scene, one of the, by the way, best scenes in the entire story, where it looks as if he kills Norisuke. And Norisuke looks very dead. He collapses after Jobin uses his stand on him, and everybody is shocked and horrified.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next chapter, and this isn't, by the way, a bad thing necessarily. It just, it is a thing. It's what happened. They go, so Norisuke is actually alive.
Right.
And I go, oh, so he didn't kill Norisuke. Which means, you could rewind for a moment, then maybe, there's still an out for Jobin,
Right.
right? Norisuke being probably the single most morally upright character in the entire story so far. The only others who are even on close to his level are maybe Yasuho. Uh, if Jobin killed Norisuke, then I think that would have been like a bridge too far. You can't come back from that.
Though there's like all kinds of weirdness with that event just because of how ambiguous it is. It's just kind
Yeah,
of the
we do
worst.
know though that he's alive, and we know that there's like a time limit. There was a flash forward where apparently Norisuke was in a body bag, though the theory is that that could possibly have been like a fake created by Paper Moon,
Mm-hmm.
which is still on the table as of right now.
Mm-hmm. But
So
it's
it's
like the thing is that Tsurugi worked with so like Tsurugi is a wild card too. Not like in a final villain kind of choice thing, but like just as a wild card. He
Yeah, Tsurugi is a character who's definitely pitiable. He could side with either one. You could see him, he could side with Jobin just because Jobin is his father. Uh,
right, and he did kill that guy with him.
yes, although that guy had it coming.
Yeah, Ojiro had it coming. But the point is that like, few things
That
bind
that
people
was
as
actually a
terrible.
great scene too.
Oh, it
That
was.
that was fantastic.
That actually made me kind of fall back in love with Jojo, just because I was like, "Oh, this is going on so long. I'm
Well,
tired of this."
they had this whole thing, and then the guy, and then Jobin's just kind of like, All right. Hey, good job with Paper Moon disguising yourself and making it,
Right.
making us look good. Now we're gonna kill this fucker. And then
Right.
they do. And then
Right.
Narisuke like confronts him over it, like, how dare you kill him, which made me go like, you know, he deserved it.
Right. Oh, but it was good though. That's the thing.
It truly was. It was great.
Hmm.
Uh yeah, I really have enjoyed Jojolion. Like, for all of the admittedly fairly nitpicky and, kind of theoretical criticisms that we're leveling. Uh I've really enjoyed Jojolion. I've really enjoyed this arc. That was one of the best fights and arcs in the whole thing. Yeah, Tsurugi is a wild card because Tsurugi likes Yasuho. So we know that at the very least he doesn't want he was upset that when he thought that Jobin killed Yasuho, I believe.
Hmm.
So it's not a definite that'll side with Jobin either. He's definitely like a legitimate wild card where who he sides with could make a big difference. And Jobin himself, it seemed one of the theories, Eon Star has a lot of pretty good Jojolian theories,
Right.
if you've seen his channel.
Oh, I have. I think I
And
didn't I introduce it to you?
I think, yeah, you might have. You might have introduced the Elvis theory.
Yep. He did
And
what was
he
it?
had this long thing where
Coronation Theory. That was
that
a
was it.
good
Yes.
name. The Jojolian Coronation Theory.
I think he was convinced that him and Yasuho would team up at the end. Uh and I think his prediction was that Holly was going to die so that Saruki could live. But she was going to like intentionally sacrifice herself to save Saruki or something along those lines.
Right.
And it would have to be that Gappy and Yasa. It was a long, involved theory, heavily involved Elvis, which
Right.
is apparently a thing in this arc.
And it
Or
is a
in
thing.
Yeah.
Honestly, the wonder his wonder of you theory was brilliant. I enjoyed it very much.
Are you referring to him? He thinks that Kato was a rock person.
I am in agreement that she's a rock person.
Uh, I'm skeptical. I don't think it's necessary.
It's not about being necessary. It's more about seeing what can be done with it. You know what I mean?
The other thing is if he thinks that Kato, which he seemed to be implying, is going to be the final boss of the story, I don't think Araki will do that. I have enough trust in Araki that whatever he does, I'm sure I'll like it. But at the same time, I trust the man enough that I think he's going to come to a satisfying ending, especially since I do think it seems, at least to me at this point, like he definitely does have a plan. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I think he knows what he's doing now. I don't think he did for a while, but I think he knows what he's doing now. And with at this point in the story, uh Kato being the final boss would be kind of disappointing because she was in it so little. I don't remember what was his explanation for how she got away with not hibernating when she was in jail.
Never had one.
No, never gave one.
Never
Yeah,
gave one.
I feel like that should be an issue, but I don't know.
I guess. I'm not one
Maybe
to.
she's half rock human. She
Right.
could have been half rock person herself.
Remember, she has split eyes, so something is weird about her.
Yeah, is a it would be an interesting move if she were a rock person, but I don't really know where they would go with that. uh It was a good video. It was a good video. That's the thing about Jojolion, and it's both one of the best and like you said yourself, it's one of the best and worst things about it. Uh Jojolion, I don't really know where they're going in this climax. I feel like Hiraki knows where he's going. It's gonna have something to do with the spin. It's gonna have something to do with Yasuho and Gappy's relationship,
Mm-hmm.
and it's going to have something to do with Jobin and whatever is going on in that flash forward sequence. You know, but outside of that, I really am not sure.
Yeah.
It's all very, very confusing.
Right. So it's like Toru has all the feeling of a second to last, like pre-climax boss. He's got all the sort of like he's got like how do I want to put it?
I
Uh,
get what you're saying. And Wonder of You is also an incredibly powerful stand, like almost OP. Uh,
right.
Honestly, it kind of is an OP stand because my understanding was Gappy's idea was I know what I'll do. I'll get myself injured intentionally so I could be put into the hospital where he works. Since somebody else will be taking me there, then I won't be pursuing him, but I'll still get closer.
Right.
Like, that was his plan, right?
Right.
And then later he comes out, he's like, okay, so I defeat the head doctor. I got it. And him and Ray get in there, but I'm not actually sure what their plan was. Yet they got very close.
Right.
The
It,
fact that it has, time travel seems to be the big theory among the fan base that the head doctor that Wonder View is connected to time travel.
mm-hmm.
In fact, it actually seemed to be something like a reverse of King Crimson's ability,
Right.
where he inserts calamities in between, like erased sections of time that they don't remember.
Right. Terrifying.
Gappy's plan, yeah, I think Gappy's plan had something to do with the soap bubbles that Mamazuku ran into, that they were supposed to be like a trap that the head doctor would hit, and instead Mamazuku hit them. And
Right.
that would have had something to do with the calamity created, where, he would have rewritten that section of time so that he hit the soap bubbles instead.
I could see
But
that.
I don't really, we still don't actually know. That's the other thing. Like, Araki is being really, really patient with a lot of these reveals. He's willing to let people hang.
It's like, Rocky, Rocky.
And this is, I guess, though, one of the best things about Jojolion, that we could sit here and discuss this and go through all of the clues and trust that there is an intelligent solution that we haven't hit on yet.
Yep.
And I think that that's why so many people like Jojolion, because they could do these sorts of deep dives.
Mm-hmm.
Where they sit down, they pull it open, they could pour over chapters and try and figure out mysteries. Because this one is definitely structured very much like a mystery in a lot of ways,
Yes.
which I think is another reason that Gappy doesn't come across so much as invested of a protagonist. Because if you think about it, in a mystery story, one of the least invested people in the story is probably going to be the detective, who is an outsider coming in, whose job is to solve things.
Yep.
So when Gappy is looked at from that perspective, it kind of makes sense that he isn't as involved, and Jojolian is looked at as a mystery story. It kind of makes sense from that perspective, though I think that he was very smart to add in the subplot with Holly
Mm-hmm.
to get him personally invested, and it's also one of the most enjoyable parts of it.
It is.
Jo- Jojolian's is definitely an interesting it's an interesting part for JoJo. That's where I think the biggest connection with part 4 comes in, the fact that it's structured as a mystery. Part 4 wasn't a mystery exactly, but it was a thriller, which is in that subcategory. You know, I mean, we knew who Kira was, but it was all about the chase for the killer and figuring and the protagonist figuring out who he was. And it's not exactly the same thing, but it's definitely similar. And there is a similar idea of this menace of, something is in this small town and messing it up. What I think though that part four had that this one doesn't is that Morio, I think, came across as more of a real place than Alt Morio,
Yep.
in my opinion, anyway.
I this town isn't doesn't feel the same doesn't feel the same at all. Um, it's the Morio, the OG town, did feel a little more lively. But honestly, I don't know what I would be able to do with that information. Like it's one of those things. It's like, yeah, I know this, but I don't know what to do with it.
Well, part of it was that Araki spent like several episode in the anime episodes, chapters in the manga
Hmm.
of Josuke like fighting people and then becoming their friends, and then we would have episodes of them like hanging out and doing stuff. Part
Right.
four was very much a slice of life. This one they did do something like that, but instead of doing it with like the town as a whole, they did it with the Higashikata family. So
Right.
instead of fleshing out the whole town, you flesh out the Higashikatas. And even then, with the fleshing out of the Higashikatas was kind of strange and still unclear how much they're actually on Josuke's side. You know,
Right.
the I guess the whole point of it is supposed to be Josuke like realizes, he has to find a place for himself and he decides he's going to be a Higashikata, right?
Right.
And he is a Higashikata and that's his family. But at the same time, it's like Jobin does not like him. And honestly, who can blame him? uh
Right.
Gappy kind of screwed him over pretty badly.
Joshu too
Uh
is has got a very strong love hate relationship with Josuke.
yeah, Joshu. Daya, the first thing she does is like wipe his memory, which I feel like Gappy forgave very easily because if I feel like with his whole issue was memory, that would have hit a lot harder than it did. But he just kind of brushes it off. Which was weird, at least to me. He that she messed with his memories and then he just kind of lets it go. He has a good relationship with Norisuke,
Hmm.
uh, but that's kind of it.
Yeah, like his relationship with Daya.
I guess Daya likes him, but Daya just felt so weird to me. Daya honestly doesn't really seem like a person to me. She comes off as the weakest of the family, which
Yeah.
is saying something because I absolutely hate Joshu, but at the very least, I give Araki credit for perfectly capturing the gamma male in
Yeah.
Joshu.
Perfectly balanced as all things should be.
He perfectly captures the gamma male. Joshu is like the depiction. Uh, but Daya does not come across as a real person. She doesn't act like a real person. Her personality doesn't really make sense to me. And Josuke's relationship with her is kind of strange.
Right. She kind of the problem with her is that she does have her own feeling, but the problem is
Yes.
that like it's kind of like, how do I want to put it? Uh
Oh, I forgot Tsurugi. He does have a good relationship with Tsurugi. I'll give it that.
oh yeah, excellent relationship with Tsurugi. Um, what was I thinking? Um, uh, she's she her thing is basically like she's blind, so she just kind of just hangs around the house, and that's it. Like there's nothing else really going on for her, compared to some things. And it's like she's into Josuke because Josuke kind of was the one to show interest in her as well. Because even if she does go to school and do all that stuff, she doesn't really at the same time. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's kind of like all over the place with her, and not in a bad way. I think she's fine because she doesn't have nearly as much plot. She doesn't need to have as much plot relevance as anyone else right now because basically it's not on her to solve a lot of the problems that the cast is facing. Nor does she have any personal emotional stake in it beyond the what you might call the usual. Um, and even then, the usual is kind of like is is a weird way to say it, just because of how strange the situations are sometimes. Like, what are you going to do with a blind girl? Honestly, the most criminally underused character in this entire series has been Kyo Nijimura.
Who's Nijimura in this? I mean,
See?
Nijimura in the original was oh,
So Kyo
was
Nishimura is
Okuyasu,
the
right?
maid that shows up in the background a lot.
I don't even
And
remember her.
she's, right? See, you don't even remember her. That's how underused she is. Uh, you know what I mean? Like it's just like, yeah, yeah, that's how it is. Um, so basically, she fought Josuke early on with her stand, "Born This Way" slash "Going Underground." Its name was changed after Japan's like, dude, that's talking about transsexuals, and he's like, oh, it wasn't literally like that, but it was kind of like that.
That's
Uh,
funny.
so he changed it to the
And I
other
could
Lady
see
Gaga
them
song,
doing that.
right? Going Underground, which is same thing, but it's different, and I think works a little better actually for what the abilities are. Um, it's like one of those things. It's like that's the explanation, but really, I think Going Underground as a name just fits it better. So uh, it turns out she's also a daughter of Holly Joestar, and took the job to pay for Holly's treatments, and she's also the one who explains the first bits of equivalent exchange, and the strange fruit that could be found at the walleyes. And then, like, she's a victim of vitamin C, and she shows up in a bunch of pictures and interacts with the family. But in reality, she doesn't really do much. So
I see.
she's just kind of there. I wish there was a better way to say it than she's just kind of there. But yeah, she's just kind of there.
Just how it goes. I think that Kato's the most underused character because her story is so interesting and has so much connection with the family, and we see her so little, which
Yep.
is too bad because honestly, she has enough personality that with more time, she probably could have made a good final villain.
I think she's had more interactions with everyone except for Josuke than Kyo has. Like, she literally shows up to taunt Norisuke sometimes, like sitting out in the beach thing. He's like, "What are you doing in my house?" And he's like, "Oh, it's our house." And he's like, "No, I sent you to, you got sent to prison." And it's just kind of like, it's just kind of funny, like this weird, how do I want to put it? It's just this great interaction between the two of them because
Am
it's
I the only one too who doesn't? There's something very Blade Runner about the rock humans going on, and I wonder if that's intentional.
I wouldn't be able to say, dude.
Because do you know the? How well do you know the plot of Blade Runner?
Very well.
Yeah, then
I
there
don't
is
know how
something about
you're gonna have to explain the connection to uh
replicants, rock humans, and replicants.
right, but like so the rock humans don't seem to have the same thing. So the replicants were looking for a way to extend their life and to basically not be the slaves of humans anymore. They wanted a piece of humanity for themselves, basically. They wanted to be human while also being themselves.
See, I'm thinking though of the original. Do androids dream of electric sheep? So people who have only seen the movie don't realize that the movie is one of those fascinating adaptations that adapts the events of the books relatively faithfully, except that it's exactly the opposite of it. Sort of like 300 and the actual historical event of the Battle of Thermopylae, where everything in it was technically kind of like it happened, but also it was interpreted in the exact opposite of the way that it actually happened. So in Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, the replicants are 100%, no question, absolutely the bad guys.
Yes.
Like, uncontroversially. There's no question here. The rock humans strike me as similar to that, where, they were beyond human. They were not human, and it was the fact that they like lacked emotions and empathy and things like that. They would pull the legs off of spiders just to see
Mm-hmm.
the spiders struggle in one of the creepiest scenes in the book. Uh, I wonder if Araki had any inspiration at all from Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, because there's definitely something very similar in the way that, like, the rock humans can be among humanity without being humanity, and they can fall in love with humans, but even then, they're not truly human.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know that for sure, but it was something as I was thinking over Jojolion occurred to me as being very similar between the two, the relationship between the replicants and the rock humans. But it's true. In the Blade Runner movie though, it's actually the opposite. In the Blade Runner movie, the replicants are the good guys.
I wouldn't call them good guys.
At the very least, they're much, much more sympathetic than in the book.
There we go. Like that's
I
yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Good guys is a little bit far, but they're at the very least they're more sympathetic. Android is an interesting book. It's like a lot of Philip
Yeah.
K. Dick books. When you're reading it, it's hard to figure out what his exact on any particular issue. But when asked about it afterward, he said that in his mind the replicants were absolutely the villains in it. You know, and the Blade Runners were good guys.
Yeah.
And
I
I don't even
I
think they were called Blade Runners. I think they were just called cops. If I read it a while ago, but I think they were just called cops.
no, I think they use Blade
Araki
Runner.
seem Did he use Blade Runner?
I think so.
It's a cool word, and I can see, and honestly, it's a better title. Uh, Araki seems to be taking a very negative view of the rock humans. I don't think that you're. He seems to be pretty clearly in the camp of the rock humans are bad and the humans are good.
Mm-hmm.
Though I don't think that he would go so far as to say straight up humans are good, humans are the good guys, but I do think he would say straight up that the rock humans are the bad guys.
Yes. I agree with you on that. No problems. Yeah. My problem with the whole rock humans is that there's always that lack of direct connection. Like they kind of fix that with Tamaki and Toru, but it's still just you know not quite there. And it's like you might say like, hey Ben, but what about the connection between, there's no connection between the 9 Egyptian glory gods and the main characters.
But the thing is, there's a direct connection between their boss and the main characters, and that counts for something. Like, proxy counts. Proxy doesn't really count. When they're just kind of there and the protagonist is there and then there's a personal conflict, it doesn't quite go for me. But honestly, I'm still pretty happy with how this thing is going. And I'm just looking forward to the next chapter in 2 months.
2 months.
I
That's
know.
so annoying.
It's frustrating. It's like at least
It's so annoying.
right? Like right now, the mangas I look forward to the most in no particular order is Jojolion, Shumatsu no Valkyrie, Chainsaw Man, Monster Hunter, which you need to read by the way. Monster Hunter Academy. Why did I say that? My Hero Academia. Um, Monster Hunter Academy just sounds gross. It's like one of those teenage, oh, I'm not special, but I'm secretly really special, sort of stories, which I absolutely hate. Um, and then what's the other one? Doctor Stone and One Piece. There we go.
Jojolion, honestly, well,
Like Chainsaw Man is getting good. Like right now, it's just the hero and the main villain, who I won't reveal because the spoilers are pretty bad. But it's basically they're fighting the demon of control.
like
That's
I was following 100 chat.
Are you there?
I was about to ask if you cut off.
No, I've been talking the entire time.
Then something happened on my end.
Yeah, you kind of cut in and out.
Repeat. Try again.
So,
Yeah, try again.
did you hear what manga I'm following?
Chainsaw Man.
Yeah. So, Jojolion, Chainsaw Man, One Piece, My Hero Academia. I'm trying to think here. Doctor Stone, Shumatsu no Valkyrie. Like those are the mangas I'm actually really looking forward to. Like right now, Chainsaw Man has been pretty hype. They've revealed the final boss of the series, as well as dealing with kind of the whole how do I want to put it, like the conflict of the series, which I guess is about living free versus control. I'm just not sure because it's still hitting there. Not in a bad way, but just in the sense of like,
Are they at the end of the series?
you see, the author does have run limited series. Like he always does it with an end in mind that you can't necessarily say other characters can do. Um, Looking at it, let's see here. Basically, the person you expected to be the villain is kind of the villain, but is fighting another person hyped up to be a villain. Um, and it's how do I want to put it? There's there's these themes of doors that are interesting, and I just don't know how to deal with it. It's interesting because it's like it's good. Like I'm reading it and it's good, and you know where this is going, and some characters have died, and all this stuff. But then it's like, who knows where it goes? Mm.
I'll have to read Chainsaw Man. I remember iPatch Wolf recommending it a while back.
Oh, dude, a lot of people have been recommending Chainsaw Man, and like I don't know why it doesn't get traction. I guess it's because I made a meme about it. I'm like, this is how serious I took it. I made a meme about it, comparing it to things like
ReZero.
ReZero specifically. So it's like, there we go. So this is a meme. It's like, no, Subaru is so dramatic and amazing. It's great writing. I misspelled writing on accident. I want to say that right out. That was an accident, but it's working. It's working for me every time I read it. You can't love Shonen over his
See, I
struggle.
thought
It's
it was
great
on
writing
purpose.
and suffering, and it's true to modern life. And no, dude, no. Uh, and it's like, the soy jack is kind of weeping over it because then it's like, oh, my special thing that makes me feel like a special boy. And it's like, huh, Chainsaw Man lit himself on fire to fight the darkness demon. That's amazing. Like, it's that feeling doesn't quite work out. And when they actually bring in the suffering, it feels all the better because of how awesome it all is. You know what I mean? Like,
I get
it's
what you're saying.
right. It's a dude that turns himself into a chainsaw through demons, and like, other people have different powers based on demons, and there's all kinds of crazy stuff, and it's like what to do with it. um, and how to deal with it. Like, they have a demon called the Eternity Demon, and the demon turns himself into a giant demon flesh wall. And it's like, haha, you have to feed yourselves to me, otherwise you'll never escape. And Denji's just like, I can cut you forever. Wait, what? I can cut you forever. And he just dives in and he starts like drinking down his blood, which powers him up. And at the same time, like cutting this thing to ribbons. It's like real body, which is a wall of flesh. So it's suffering just forever because it's like you dropped that internal chainsaw into like a mass of babies because it can't defend himself outside of its tricks. So it's like, it's that level of awesome that just needs to be recognized more. Uh, but it's just not, like, and it's frustrating because all the right people like it. It's just that, no, like, even when they talk about it, it doesn't generate hype. Like, it's on what could be its final or second to final arc, and it's only now getting an English translation like 80 chapters in. It's just, I don't know.
It's gonna get an anime adaptation. It's a matter of when, not if. Uh,
Yep.
and I'll read it one day. The only manga I'm honestly following My Hero Academia in this. I do need to finish Silver Spoon since Hiramu Arakawa just finished it up. Uh, but as far as live running, those are it.
Mm-hmm.
And both of them are great right now, especially My Hero Academia. Something that we've discussed many times, and I will still argue. Think that we've reached the point where My Hero Academia can be called like one of the great manga, shonen manga, and Horikoshi, one of the great living manga writers,
Mm-hmm.
because this arc is that good. Uh, and it is consistently that good. Like, this last chapter has been, like, it's been just as good consistently throughout it. The artwork in it is probably some of the best in Shonen Jump. I hear some people point to Black Clover, but
Mm-hmm.
man, which is fair, but man, some of the individual frames in these last few chapters of My Hero Academia, like, I just had it saved. Shigaraki has some quote. He was, spoiler everybody, but Shigaraki was right about to kill our boy Aizawa, and is rescued at the last second. And Aizawa was rescued at the last second by Todoroki. And there's just this amazing, like, almost full page panel of Shigaraki standing there, and they have all of this detail on his body. It's like ripped and scarred. The
Mm-hmm.
skin is crackling, and he has this, and his hair, the way he draws his hair is that he almost draws like the outline of his hair and then just doesn't color it. So it's white. And Shigaraki says, "So you protected him. So what?" delay the inevitable all you like. And he gives like this ghoulish grin and says, destruction is all that awaits you. And I'm like, my God, I love this arc.
Mm-hmm.
I love this I love this panel. I love the way that the weird way that he drew his hair. I love that his body is just this, scarred, horrifying scarred mass. You know, I love the fact that Gigantomachia is about to rip his way through 20 different towns
Yep.
and nobody can stop, and there's nobody nearby and nobody can stop him, which means that probably the class 1A kids are going to have to run out there and stop him 5 towns in.
Right. Already mount ladies down.
Yeah, they so I mean, I think that we've covered Jojolion pretty well, so I'll talk about My Hero Academia with guilt.
Just real briefly.
Yeah, we went through Jojolion pretty in depth. Uh, I think, didn't they throw the sedative into Gigantomachia's mouth?
Right. But I doubt it can work on him. Like he's huge.
He's going.
Huge.
No, I'll tell you what's going to happen. He's going to collapse at a story dramatic moment.
Ooh,
It's what I would do.
that's true.
If it were me, that's what I would do. I'd have him swallow it, keep going, and then he's just about to like kill someone or do something, then he collapses at a story dramatic moment. From what I could see, the only way at this point that this arc could end is that Shigaraki is going to have to lead them on a retreat after like wrecking the place. And honestly, you could argue that they've already wrecked the place. So
Mm-hmm.
it's going to end as something of like a Pyrrhic victory for the heroes, kinda, where
Right.
they force a retreat. But Gran Torino is almost certainly dead. Everybody's been saying that Endeavor would lose his power, but and they still have one quirk bullet left, and that would be interesting, but I doubt it.
Right. It's like where's the quirk bullet gonna go? Because they're doing it pretty hard right now.
I have to give Horikoshi some credit with the quirk bullet because of all of the possibilities that people gave for what would happen with the quirk bullet. I literally didn't see anybody pick Aizawa gets shot with it but cuts off a limb.
Who's Aizawa?
Uh, Eraserhead.
Oh yeah. Oh, Aizawa. Yeah.
Sorry, yeah, I don't know if I pronounced it wrong. Maybe Aizawa. Yeah, cut. I did not see Aizawa gets hit and cuts off. I got to admit.
I didn't notice he cut off the limb.
Oh yeah, you didn't catch that? He
No.
says, "Thanks for the warning. Now it gives me time," and he takes out a sword and cuts off his own leg.
Huh. I knew he took out the sword. I just didn't notice he. Hold on, I'm rereading it.
It's pretty metal.
Right.
Oh yeah, because they can't take out Aizawa. They absolutely cannot take out Aizawa. He's way too necessary.
Right. I'm pretty
Of course,
sure he
with
clawed
Eri
out
in the
his eyes.
background.
Right.
No, he was about to. That's when Todoroki comes in. He has his hand on his face and they're digging into his face, but before he could get his eyes, Todoroki hits him with a wall of ice.
Right.
And that's why Shigaraki says, "So you protected him, delay the inevitable all you like." Basically like you got him you saved him at the last second.
Right.
Oh my god, the artwork of this chapter is so good. It's
Right.
so good.
Like I see it now that he okay, yeah, and then Todoroki saved him with ice. Everyone's charging in.
That's also why Shigaraki says, "You really are pretty cool, Eraser."
Yep.
Because he sees him just no hesitation chop off his leg.
Right. Ah, well. It's going pretty good so far. I like it. Gigantomachia is about to hit a town.
They rattle off something. I think somebody counted and said like 21 cities that they need to evacuate, which is insane.
Yep. And there's just like Ochaku, Froppy, and Machine Head, or whatever his name is,
Ingenium.
Ingenium, there for it. And it's like, yeah, I could see how maybe Ochaku with a couple of others could have done it. Just Ochako, just because her ability like negates
Yeah.
gravity.
People mention they could take. It's possible they could take him down though. He's gonna do some damage first, but
Yep.
there's definitely a way to do it. What they'll need to do is she'll need to use her quirk on him, and then probably if it's those three, Ingenium's gonna have to charge him away.
Yep.
Give fire him into the air, which would be badass. But
But it's
which would be
probably
a pretty
not.
cool way to do it.
Yep. Like maybe it's Ingenium who's gonna die this arc. It's like whoa,
Nah, they
whoa.
won't. I don't see it. They won't kill a student.
Oh, I don't know. I'd kill a student, but that's just a Friday
I'd kill
night.
Mineta, but that's it.
Yeah, but there's
I would
there's
have
no
killed.
there's no
I would have
excellence
killed
in that.
Mineta a long time ago. Of
Hmm.
course there is. It would be excellent not to have Mineta anymore.
You don't get it. He
He
adds contrast. Uh,
He adds nothing, and I hate him.
contrast.
Between good and bad characters, that's the contrast.
It helps make the character stand out more. I swear,
I
it's
hate
good
Mineta.
writing.
I hate him. He does not belong there. I did like Mother's Basement had a pretty good joke where he says, "We're going to create a new society of heroes and Mineta."
that's
I'm
that's a
just like,
basic
yep,
joke, but yeah, it's funny.
it worked.
Yep.
And
Alright.
Coda, I did like the scene where Coda, Mineta tries to like peep into like the women's baths or something while they're at the summer camp. And if
Mm-hmm.
you remember, the little kid Coda is standing there watching him, and he was like set up there as a sentry.
Mm-hmm.
And he has this great line where he says, like, you say you want to be a hero, but you act like a scumbag or something.
Mm-hmm.
Like, see, the Horikoshi knows. He knows.
Right.
And he does it anyway.
It's a thing of
He has
beauty.
no excuses.
Alright. Well, I'm gonna call it up. Call it a week. Next week we'll be talking about something excellent. Something wunderbar. Something I'll give you a hint about. My sweet, sweet watchers. All four of you. Just a little taste. Dun 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 dun. Alright, guys. Have a good one. See you next week.
But what's the taste?